Hi, I'm Celso from Guará.ca, and today we're turning my car into a little RC car. The reason why I modeled this car in the first place was to be used on a story that I'm working on, but then I got a couple of those RC cars from AliExpress, and they cost me about 30 bucks, and I couldn't help but put them apart. And as I'm really into 3D printing, and I also recently got a 3D scanner, I had to put those things together. I got another video talking about making the 3D model from scanning to topology and painting. So today we're gonna focus more on that point forward. After lining up and matching the scale of my car with the RC car, I noticed that the proportions were a little bit different, so I used a lattice to make it fit. And then I combined everything and started merging all the panels together. After I had everything combined, some parts were just overlapping instead of merged, but everything was part of the same object, so I brought it into ZBrush and Dynameshed everything together. And then I started checking with booleans to see if there was any holes in my model. After I was happy how everything merged together, I went back and started redrawing some of the lines that were getting lost. Then I duplicated the entire car, made a little bit of lower resolution so I could smooth it out and extend the bottom, and I used as a negative boolean mesh to get everything to the thickness that I wanted. I think I forgot to record it, but at this point I went back to the RC car scan and I modeled the little connection points so it would match. And then I was off to printing. I sliced everything on the bamboo slicer and printed everything on the bamboo P1S. Printed everything in PLA, and I used the standard supports and they just worked fine. I also used the 0.2mm nozzle with the pre-made high quality settings. The supports came out fairly easy, especially after I switched to the 0.2mm nozzle. And I was very happy to see that on my fourth attempt of printing this, the insides fit in quite perfectly. So all I had left to do was drill a couple holes for the screws, and I used this screw to cut in the threads. After that was a lot of sanding, but I should have done more because you can still see a lot of print lines, especially on the top. The only part that I print separately was the mirrors, because I wouldn't trust the supports for this. And I just super glue it together. I got a random piece of paper just to not paint my entire table there. And I'm using a very old small air compressor that I had from when I was painting Gundams. And the same can be said about the paints that I'm using. A lot of them have dried out, and I was having a hard time with that. So I did a first layer of prime, and then I sand things a little bit more. And I did try to do some shading with the airbrush at first, but I gave up on that very fast. Here's my assistant. So I got some glossy black, and I used a brush to paint all the black parts. And then I mixed a couple different shades of gray and went back using my 3D model as a reference. It's kind of funny because I tried to do a hand-painted look on 3D, And now that I'm actually hand painting, I'm using the 3D as a reference. It's a little bit backwards. And here is a panel liner that I have for Gundams. I think it's Tamiya branded. And basically you touch one of the panels and it's very liquid, so it spreads. I did reinforce with a fine liner most of the panels, and I use this to do the lines, the crosshatch lines that I have on the model. So I had a lot of fun with this little project. I'm not 100% happy with the results, but I did learn quite a lot. And let me show you some of my failed attempts, because most of the things that I learned was from the fails. This one, I ended up destroying a little bit, testing some things, testing how much I should sand, if I could use some power tools to sand. The answer was no, because it would eat through the plastic fairly fast. It's like either doing nothing or kind of melting the plastic there. I did my fittings didn't work for this one, so that's why and the sizing was a little bit off, so I had to adjust some things between this one and this one. So this one was actually a failed print. I had a very small failure here on the bottom. Just didn't stick to the print plates. I just needed to clean the print plate. It wasn't much, but was good that it happened, because it gave me a blank piece for me to test. And those paint marks is I was trying to paint with markers, see how it would look. And I was gonna try it, but I'm glad I had a spare piece to test it, because it didn't work as expected. So this one was my first successful model. It fitted perfectly and it printed perfectly as well, but I messed up the painting. I think I went too far with the painterly look, like trying to replicate what I did in 3D, and going back and forth many times, and it started looking mushy, and the lines and everything. And I could paint over everything and start over, but because everything's so small, the details were already clogging with too much paint on it. So it just was easier for just print again for me. And here's the final one. I'm pretty happy with the result, actually. Like, the more time passes, the more forgiving I am to myself when it comes to those things. Uh, and the thing that I learned the most is making things this small is hard. It's a lot harder. It's hard to film because I can never find focus. It's hard to paint because the details are so small, and I'm not a painter. I'm a 3D artist, and it's hard to print because there is like you have to reinforce the details so they actually show. And overall, the smaller you go, the harder it is. But so expect to see some bigger things coming out of this printer in the future.